right? So this program itself is organized by SCAPE together with the program partner Pinnacle. So myself, Wei Liang, I'm actually the entrepreneurship program manager at Pinnacle, running this program together with SCAPE, right? So I just want to do a very quick introduction of what this SCAPE Creative Fellowship is. We have a number of audience from all different aspects of businesses, be it just here to understand more about business, or even those who want to learn more about the Web3 scene, all sorts. Right, so sharing a little bit more about SCAPE Creative Fellowship. Right, so SCAPE Creative Fellowship is actually a 3-month program, right, that we have designed specially for the startups and also the different creative industry itself. So something different about this program itself, and we pride ourselves that this is a first of its kind program, introducing Web3 elements to all startups here. Right, so if you are interested, I'll share the sign up link later. You can feel free to sign up for that. What we will be doing here is we will be introducing you to the different Web3 elements, and you as a startup founder, as a business itself, you can actually see if this Web3 solution is something that you would like to implement to your business itself, right? And definitely, there's a lot of questions coming in on what is the difference between this Creative Fellowship program as compared to the normal incubator or accelerator that you join outside, right? I would say that this program itself is very focused on building your go-to-market strategy. So there's a focus on how you can actually build your sales and marketing funnel, right? So the key is how do you actually get your customers from there, right? So besides sales and marketing funnel, we will be sharing a bit about the different tips and tricks on your digital marketing, how you actually use digital marketing to scale your business itself, how you actually plan and strategize for the future of your business, and definitely also how you can deep dive into the different product design, right? Something that will be interesting for a lot of startups, if you are here with us today as well, is that you are not only learning how to put your pitch deck together here, right? You are actually learning how to look at your own pitch deck from an investor's perspective. So the trainer for this program, she worked with, for this segment itself, sorry, she worked with a venture capitalist, and she is an angel investor herself. So she will know, and she's very clear of the different assessment from the different investors' point of view, right? So summing everything together, this would be the areas that you will be learning by taking part in this program. And also, right, the benefits of joining this program, right, we aim to customize all the learning to your own needs, because we believe that all startups have different requirements. So we will customize the program support and also the mentors based on your own requirement, right? And we are putting together this whole community for you, for the startups, to actually network with your potential client and also your potential investor. So we are creating this platform through this SCAPE Creative Fellowship itself. And through this program, what you can stand a chance to win and walk away with is 3 months of hot desking space at Spectrum, and definitely also 3 months of business mentoring with our pool of mentors over here, right? And definitely with the business support itself, in terms of business support, we will, you are able to receive up to $10,000 of AWS credits and business support to help to scale your startup there. Right, and we know that everyone has very busy schedule, and some of us are very used to the online setting for a lot of our program, and a lot of us are lazy to travel out, right? So what we have done differently for this program as well is we have changed it into a hybrid manner. So you are not only seeing us physically, we will also be using this very fun tool called Gather.town. I'm not sure how many of you have played with this. For Gather.town, basically, it's a metaverse place where you can actually move around and have your normal lessons, have your normal interactions from there. Right, and besides Gather.town, we will, because it's a hybrid, we want that interaction with you as well. We will be doing the program across a number of physical locations. One of them is definitely SCAPE itself. And the second one is at Spectrum, which is right at Bugis MRT. Something about Spectrum that you can look out for, and for those of you who potentially can win the 3 months hot desking seat for your team, this is how Spectrum will look like. We have all the premium workspaces, we have different facilities for you to run your meeting, to run your event, and we aim to host different kind of monthly learning events and webinars. And something that interests a lot of people who are here for networking and events is our lifestyle sessions and lifestyle venue called the Door 25, based right in Spectrum itself. So some of the mentors and trainers that you can potentially hear from, right? We have Noor Aziz. He used to be the previous head of UX at PayPal. So he founded his own fashion wear brand called Purpose Performance Wear, which is used by a lot of athletes out there, right? So he will be coming in to cover a little bit about, or rather going in depth into how you can actually design your product itself, right? And we have George. George is head of growth at Sandbox, and he's here to introduce metaverse to you, right? And George works very closely with one of our speakers today, Loretta, who actually was the one who introduced George into this, right? And trainer that you can hear from, Sotiros. Sotiros is the founder of XYZ Labs, who does digital marketing. So he is a specialist in digital marketing field itself. He knows how to play around with all the digital marketing tools, attract attention for all the kind of online marketing there. Right, and the other few trainers that we have, Jen, she's a co-director at Imaginarium. So what Jen does is she does a lot of strategy planning for a lot of big corporates and also the government, right? Patrick Ng, founder of Spark Launchpad, he actually has a lot of IP under his belt, right? So those of you who are in the product sector itself, Patrick will be someone that you will be very interested to learn from, right? And lastly, Cindy, who will be covering more towards the investment perspective, looking at pitch deck from the investor point of view. She's an angel investor herself and also with Golden Equator Ventures. Right, so those of you who are interested to sign up for this might be wondering, so who can actually sign up for this? Right, as long as you are between the age of 18 to 35 and you are a Singaporean or PR, or if you have someone in your team who is between this age or a Singaporean or PR, feel free to sign up for this. And I do have received a lot of startups asking about the commitment for the program, right? So although we mentioned that this program itself is 3 months long, right? It's not every day in that 3 months, right? So every week we will have 1 to 2 lessons. And it's fixed all on either Monday or Thursdays from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. or 9:30 p.m., right? Depending on the schedule. We will share the schedule to those who sign up with us, right? And it's compulsory attendance for all startups. So if let's say there's one session that you can't make it, but your team is present there, that is sufficient, right? And the first session of the program will start on the 6th of February. Okay, so some of the alumni that has gone through this SCAPE Creative Fellowship Program, right? We have Staff Any, Data Ideas, who was founded by Raimie himself previously, who is our moderator today, Hills Moody, Bounty Urban Origins, and also Copy Day. So naming some of the few alumni who have gone through this SCAPE Creative Fellowship Program. Right, so those of you who are interested in signing up, please feel free to sign up here. I will leave the QR code here for a while. I will be sharing the link into the chat shortly as well. And if you have any other questions regarding this, please feel free to type it in the Q&A segment or email to fellowship@scape.sg. Right, so I'll leave here for another 3. Right, and just that has been a very quick sharing on what SCAPE Creative Fellowship is. The startups or students who, or anyone, all right, under the age of 35 who are in this session with us. If you are interested, please sign up with us. And we have already, I don't want to hold out more time, so I will be handing over the Fireside Chat to Raimie, right? Raimie is the co-founder of Metafi. He has been with the SCAPE Creative Fellowship previously, and he has been in this Y Combinator program in 2022. Right, so I'll leave everything to Raimie to introduce the speakers as well as introducing himself.
Thanks so much, William. Firstly, a very good evening to everyone who's present. Thank you so much for taking time off your busy schedules to join us. I genuinely hope that this session will be super useful for you guys. But yeah, a very brief introduction about myself first, and then the focus will all shift to our very esteemed speakers later on. So I'm the co-founder and CEO of Metafi. We are building blockchain infrastructure for Web3 games and apps. We recently graduated from Y Combinator's summer 2022 batch. So it's a startup accelerator in the US. And yeah, very much in the Web3 crypto metaverse space. So very excited to be moderating this panel. And on to the stars of the show, our two esteemed speakers. Firstly, we have Loretta Chen, a woman of many talents. So she's an acclaimed creative director, best-selling author, also a professor. And she spent many years in Hawaii itself. In fact, she's calling in from Hawaii today, but still a very proud Singaporean. So very excited to hear about her as the co-founder of Smobler Studios, which is a virtual architecture firm building in the Sandbox. So that's our first speaker. And we have our second speaker, Mr. Jonathan Wong, who is the Vice President of Product and Technology at One Championship. So he's spent over 15 years building in the software space, which is super exciting. So having had stints in Rakuten, Microsoft, and a few other tech companies, he's now in One Championship and very much involved with the Web3 initiatives in the space. So I won't go so deep into introducing them so much because I want them to really speak for themselves. So yeah, I think what we can do for now is really have first Loretta give a brief introduction about herself, what she's doing in the Web3 space, and later on for Jonathan to do the same as well. So Loretta, you wanna kick it off?
Hi there, everybody. So happy to see you all. Well, technically can't really see all your faces, but it's so nice to know you're all here breathing the same virtual air with me. I suppose you can add that my other talent is staying up way past midnight, and I've been doing lots of seminars in the middle of the night, like 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., because sometimes I say yes and then I forget that it's like wee hours of the morning. But thank you for having me. So yeah, we're really proud to be Singapore's first and official The Sandbox investee company in Singapore. But I think the one key difference is that we don't just build on the Sandbox, even though they are our investor. We are actually metaverse agnostic, and I think part of the Web3 world is really about like decentralization and just having interoperability. So we actually build across different metaverse platforms. But of course, a large part of our builds are in the Sandbox. Really because we really enjoy working with the founders and we really enjoy working on the platform. But the other thing that I think is really our value add is that we also have a really strong phygital arm, because I don't think that the metaverse is going to like take over the world, right? Like we don't have these, end of the world sort of fantasies, but I really see the metaverse as an extension and augmentation of our daily lives. And so I do think that having links to the real world, so we are doing like the events, we're doing the activations, we'll partner with Golden Equator, we might partner with One Championship. But the point is, I think those phygital links is what embellishes and enhances the metaverse experience. And the other thing that we're also really strong in, because of my own academic background, is that we truly believe that the future is in the metaverse. And as with all new things, it always starts with education. So we have an academy, we have the Sandbox Academy, and we also work with academies in Singapore as well as elsewhere, like with Carnegie Mellon. So we have lots of partnerships with different academic institutions as well. So yeah, largely these three things: we build worlds, we create IPs, we have an academic arm, and we truly believe in building out the digital experience as well. Jonathan?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Likewise, my pleasure to be here today to talk to everyone. Although timing-wise, it's pretty comfortable for me. It's only 6:30 now. It's not midnight. So that's all good. Yeah, so I lead product and tech at One Championship. Just a brief one-sentence summary of One Championship. One Championship, we're one of the largest global sports media properties in Asia. Basically, if you look at our Nielsen numbers in terms of online reach, video views, broadcast reach, we're in pretty much in the top 5 out of all the sports media properties in the world for most of the categories. We're very young as a sports media property. Most of the sports that you guys are familiar with, whether it's EPL, NBA, NFL, or F1 or whatnot, those companies have like 50 years of history, some even 100 years of history, right? For one championship, we're only 11 years old. So we're really a baby compared to a lot of other sports media properties. But as a result, because we're relatively new, we can afford to be, a bit more progressive in how we do things. So we like to pride ourselves at one as, early adopters of technology. Everything we do is social first, mobile first, digital first. And, increasingly, we're also looking at the world through the web lens of Web3. And we also want to be progressive in this area and eventually be also Web3 first in this way. So yeah, happy to be here to speak to everyone.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, Loretta and Jonathan. Really excited to really push this discussion forward. But just a very quick summary of what topics we'll be covering during this discussion is, firstly, we'll talk about the real value of Web3, both from a B2B and B2C standpoint. I would love to hear both Jonathan's and Loretta's thoughts on it. And secondly, we want to hear more insights and trends in the space, since you guys have a very much front driver's seat view of the whole environment, so that the attendees today can really learn from your lens what are the insights and trends that they should be looking out for. And to wrap everything up, we'll leave about 10 minutes at the end for Q&A. So for any member of the audience, feel free to just send your questions in the chat. I'll be looking at those questions and estimating the time we need for that Q&A segment. So yep, without further ado, I think the first question I really want to hear from both Jonathan and Loretta is about the 1 or 2 biggest initiatives that they're doing as part of both Smobler Studios and One Championship that they're excited about in the Web3 space. And just want to share more or hear more about those initiatives. So Jonathan, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure, happy to. So from one's perspective, largely most, if not all, of what we're looking at in the Web3 space now is in terms of consumer engagement. So basically, how do we use Web3 as a means to empower our fans in order to increase our engagement with our fans, to reach them where they are, and basically to offer new experiences for our fans as well. So to that end, it's still early days in terms of what we're doing, but we recently have signed a blockchain gaming deal with one of the very well-known developers of blockchain games in the space today. The PR announcement has not gone out yet, so I can't really say who it is, but we're all very excited to see that deal happen and to see our game come to market. Beyond that, we're also looking at other things that we can do, in terms of NFTs, in terms of using, Web3 for other maybe more mundane scenarios like ticketing, for example, all of which, enable new use cases for our fans that weren't previously possible if we were just looking at it through a Web2 lens. So I mean, in summary, that's sort of the stuff that we're doing. We're also, again, it's still all very early days, but we should see quite a bit of traction this year.
Awesome. Super excited for what's to come. What about you, Loretta?
Yeah, I'm very similar as well. I think one of the greatest things that we often talk about in Web3 space is that obviously it's decentralization. So there's going to be more like democratization in terms of power. It's almost like whenever people talk about like what is the biggest value of Web3, I always say it's almost like thinking about how, you're sort of, because big tech today has become really like a utility, but yet it really is run by private organizations. So what this allows us is to actually take back some of that power, right? I mean, if we use like a political analogy, we always like to say like, there's no perfect political system, but I would choose to live in a democracy any day. So a lot of the work that we're doing is really trying to create value for our consumers, value for our customers. I think what Jonathan was saying. In fact, one of the things I always say is that only the drug industry do actually call your customers users, but guess which other industry does that? The tech industry does that too, right? So we really want to turn users into, you know, communities. And so they get to dictate what they want to see, what they want to hear, what they want to do. So we are working with a lot of our brands to do that. And what's been really exciting, like you said, what are some of the exciting projects we're working on, is that it is not just the fashion brands that are coming on, because traditionally, you know, that artists, creators were always the first to jump in, right? So you see luxury brands going in, you see fashion brands going in, you see musicians going in, like Snoop. But now what we're really working on, we're seeing like our clients are banks and we have mainstream institutions, right? So it's really exciting working with these legacy brands who are actually very forward thinking. So it's almost like they went from like analog to like metaverse, right? So it's really exciting to see how they are so quick to want to understand what younger people want, probably your audience. And like, it's like so much intergenerational learning and thinking. A lot of the decision makers, as you would probably know, are baby boomers or Gen Xers, but they're so keen to understand millennials, Gen Z, and not just that, they're really planning for the alpha generation. So the kind of consumer engagement we're doing is not just about thinking 1 year ahead, 3 year ahead, but we're really thinking like what does the next generation want and creating those infrastructure. So I think that's been super exciting for us to not just be able to dream up the future, but really put it into plan like today. So I think the technology has enabled us to do that. So it's a really exciting time to dream and to do together with our clients.
Right. That sounds awesome. Just curious, you mentioned, okay, so for Jonathan, it's more of engagement. Same for Loretta, but Loretta, you brought up something called decentralization, and that's about really taking power back from big tech companies and basically being able to own some of those decisions or data. Yeah, could you elaborate more about that? Is that something that your brands or your clients are very interested in, like really giving power back to the consumers, or are we still a long way to go from that?
Sorry, that was to me, right? Yeah, I think that it is an aspiration, and are there stumbling blocks, are there things that we need to overcome infrastructurally, you know, outreach, adoption? I think all of this is real, but I think, you know, I think anyone, if you're just looking at trends, I think history is a way of repeating itself. But if you just looked at trends, right, just look at the way trends have grown or evolved in the last few years. So not even to look too far, right? I remember I was at that era, and Jonathan probably remembers, where everything is like a big billboard, right? You drive down the street, there's like a big billboard, a big neon sign. You went from mass marketing, literally, or mass advertising, to like after the 2008, 2009 recession, everything was a little bit more localized. I mean, that was like our version of the pandemic, right? 2008, 2009 with the recession and all of that. So everything was becoming very local. And then, of course, you had like the rise of social media, and where everyone becomes now a social media platform, and everyone is about vying for eyeballs, and it's about building communities. So if you think just naturally about where we are now in the Web3 space, there is so much emphasis on like the influencer. Like everyone now is a celebrity. Like back in our generation with Jonathan and I, we probably had like a few like global celebrities. Everybody knows Michael Jackson or Madonna, right? Or Fleetwood Mac. But like today, it's like everyone has these little niches, because there's so many different platforms. So it's really like a battle of different platforms, and a battle of attention. So I think what brands recognize is that it's not a matter of choice. They don't really have a choice as to whether or not they want to participate. Their consumers are demanding it, because they're online and they have their own following, or they are their own cult of personality. So it's almost now you see the reverse. Like back then, like we are chasing brands, right? But now the brands are like chasing the influencers or the communities. So I don't really think they have a choice anymore. So that's why I think the heat is on and the battle is on for them to like step up and shape up. So I think it's a really interesting reversal of power. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I just want to hear Jonathan's thoughts on this, because One Championship is definitely very much consumer facing as well. Are you seeing your own viewers or audience really keen on taking ownership of the experiences or anything to do with what they see with One Championship? Or is it like why build a Web3 game, not a Web2 game, for example? Yeah,
absolutely. So I mean, just briefly to add on to what Loretta was saying earlier, our working thesis is that today we have a lot of fans, you know, who watch and consume our content. but we don't really have a strong community, right? And our working thesis is that through Web3, which enables things like decentralized ownership, giving fans essentially a stake in our business, maybe not business per se, but at least a stake of our community and our product and our experiences, whether it's through the ownership of NFTs or whether it's through the ownership of tokens or whatnot. Through that ownership, through giving our fans, this experience of having a stake in one, we can foster then a strong community around that. And that's really the working thesis and the reason to be why we're doing all of this stuff in Web3. Now, to answer your original question, is anyone demanding for it yet? I mean, I would say, to be intellectually honest, a lot of our fans don't really know about Web3. And part of our job is really also to educate our users and our fans about what Web3 can enable. And for anything that we're going to do in this space, we always have user education as a top priority that we'll have to achieve if any of this is going to be successful.
Got it. That's interesting. Yeah, thanks so much for bringing up the topic of education, which is something even as a founder of a Web3 company, it's not easy, right? Everyone has their own desires, time, attention span is short. What have you seen work, both of you, right? What have you seen work very well in educating the masses about the benefits of Web3 or the value of Web3? Anything you guys are adopting yourselves or something you've seen as being quite successful?
Yeah, I mean, I can jump in on this one because we actually have a case study because one of the first brands that we actually launched in the metaverse, and actually I think this was the first like mass or business case study that was reported in like the Straits Times. So we actually launched a food bank into the metaverse. And that was very groundbreaking because of a few things. I think it was one, obviously taking a non-profit sector into the metaverse. And it was also trying to educate folks on like crypto philanthropy. So I think what the measures that we took, going back to education question, was multifold, right? So in that, obviously we had to design the NFTs, design obviously the mechanisms, the smart contracts and all that. Obviously we had to do all of that. Then the part that was very much part the success of the project was really the phygital links. That's why I go back to the phygital is really important. We actually like had a brand ambassador. We had Young Raja be a brand ambassador because he himself is an NFT collector. He's very bullish on the space. So we used Young Raja as a brand ambassador to gain that kind of outreach. And then of course we had a lot of subsequent education, like we literally ran workshops and we literally had someone to come in to teach. So not only did we create little videos for people to understand how to like set up a wallet, how do you purchase an NFT, how do you make an NFT, not only did we do all of that, we made it into a sustained campaign. So I think that this sort of work is really crucial. So like without giving too much information to, we're also now working with another government agency to create like a campaign to digitize or to like skill up Singapore to get them to be a little bit more aware of these trends. So I think it's a constant thing. So I think parts of the education campaign is about using the marketing tools that work, right? Whether it's social media, whether it's use of videos, whether it's use of TikTok. So I think it is a version of using some of the Web2 strategies, making sure that you get the word out there, using old school ambassador. So it's a combination of your Web2, your in real life experiences in order to get people to go towards the Web3. So I don't think you can't use Web3 techniques to get people on Web3 because those are like the Web3 natives. They know what to do, right? So I think it is a combination of using all these suites of marketing techniques and tools to drive adoption.
Got it. Makes sense. Jonathan, on education,
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, we're still very early on in our journey. So a lot of what we are planning right now works in theory, but we haven't put it into practice yet. But for example, some of the strategies we plan to do are, thematically, I would say it's about focusing on the experience first and don't really focus too much on the Web3 aspect of it. So for example, we're planning to airdrop free commemorative NFTs to anyone who's a ticket holder, right? So if you actually buy a physical ticket to an event, you'll see this QR code at the back of it. Oh, okay, that piques your interest. You'll scan it in, you'll go into a nice landing page experience to explain what all this is about. And if you are willing to spend 5 minutes or so to set up a new MetaMask wallet, we can airdrop this into your wallet for you, right? So things like that, lead with the goodie first, lead with the experience, and along the way, educate the user a bit by bit about what is all this about, what exactly is a wallet, and I think looking at an example of someone who has did this reasonably well, Reddit, when they launched their digital avatars, they don't position that as NFT PFPs, right? Basically, this is a digital avatar, claim your free one. If you want to create a wallet, great. If not, it's okay. We'll centrally custody it for you also. That's also fine. Or if you want to take custody of your own PFP, you can also do so. And to do so, this is how you create a wallet. So, I mean, a similar playbook to what we're looking at as well.
Right. Oh, I love.
Okay. Yeah, and I just, sorry, Raimie, I just want to jump in and add that, eventually it should really be as ubiquitous as like using the ATM, right? Like, my mom doesn't know how an ATM works. I mean, I don't know literally if you ask me to break down how an ATM works. I'm like, I actually don't know how an ATM works, but I just use an ATM anyway, right? If you ask me, like, now I use an app and I, do all these transactions on an app. I don't actually query how that app actually works, but we just use it because it is this like systematic education that just happens every single day that you just sort of start going with the flow. And I think that should be how the Web3 adoption should be eventually. Yeah. Got it.
Yeah, thanks for sharing those. I love the examples, the case studies from both of you. So maybe next question I have for you. It's no secret that crypto and Web3 is going through a tough time now, right? With the bear market happening, a bunch of fraudulent companies being exposed. So what is it different now compared to like a year ago? What has your mindset changed, or in what way has it changed? And any advice for companies who are going through this phase? Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I can chime in first here. Yes, absolutely, it has changed. I think, well, some things have not changed, right? I think belief in Web3 as a tool has not changed. We're still as firmly committed to Web3 today as we were in 2021 or 2020, right? I think what has changed is that, again, because we deal with B2C, we deal with consumers, not businesses. A lot of consumer, how do you say it, hype or consumer demand for learning about Web3 has pretty much fallen off a cliff, since the bear market started. So that adjusts some of the things that we plan in terms of timing or in terms of approach. For example, back in 2020, we were in talks to actually launch a for sale NFT collection, back all the way back then. For one reason or another, it didn't work out back then. But right now, for example, we would not go to market immediately, and the first thing we do is to ask people to pay for our NFTs, right? Just because the environment, is not conducive for that right now. Instead, our approach right now would be to, again, follow what I said earlier around, focusing on the experience. We would probably do something that is free or nominally free first, and basically evolve it from there. So yeah, the bear market certainly changes things in terms of, from our perspective, approach, in terms of timing, but in terms of conviction, no, it has not changed.
Awesome. Sounds good. Loretta?
Yeah, and for me, my clients are the opposite of Jonathan's, right? Because Jonathan is very B2C, ours is B2B. And so in fact, what we've seen is we are busier than ever, I think for a variety of reasons. I think because we work with legacy brands or government agencies or academic institutions, financial institutions, when they set their mind on something, they don't waver and they don't change, right? I mean, they normally will commit to a plan that they have set out. Because there are many stakeholders involved. So in fact, this is the best time to build. So, like a year ago, so for example, at the highest, let's just use Sand as example, like a year ago, it went as high as like 850, right? Today it's like 40 cents. So like a lot of my clients are actually taking the opportunity to purchase land because it's like, it's a very, very good investment now. So actually we're seeing now even a greater uptake in land sales, which also then translates into possibly more builds and more experiences. And I think we're also seeing clients that are really here for the right reasons and here for a longer term and more cohesive vision. So it's actually weeded out, as with all recessions and with all winters, it's weeded out the speculators, the ones who are just here for the good old times, because a lot of those like hype projects were not going to survive in the first place, right? But it's hard for us to like, you know, burst people's bubbles, right? So it's almost like the winter itself has weeded these players out. And so you see like the survival of the fittest, you see those that have always been intentional and very strategic and know what they want. So those are actually getting stronger and stronger. And so this is actually a perfect time to build.
Got it. Oh, awesome. Yeah, I fully agree, because we see those bad actors really being removed, and it's just normal. Like even the economy, it takes some cooling time off to really reconsolidate, to be prepared for even further growth later on. So super excited about that. So let's just move on to more of the insights or trends that you have observed or you are super excited about. I think we all have seen the decentralized finance boom in the 2020s and in year 2020, and then the NFT boom in year 2021, right? So if we could predict the next boom in technology in the Web3 space, that would be pretty awesome. So any specific tech or use case that you guys are excited about and you think is currently underhyped, but it's just a matter of time before it gets noticed from more mainstream folks? Is there anything in particular?
I mean, I can start first here. So I mean, the very obvious answer is in gaming and metaverse projects. I mean, I don't think that's news to anyone. A lot of people have already been forecasting it. But just a summary for everyone online, you know, essentially when GameFi and all these gaming Web3 projects started, what, 6 to 12 months ago, you know, there was a lot of hype, started out by Axie, play to earn, everything, you know, everyone's earning a lot of money from playing games. That has mostly died down, right? And the biggest knock on GameFi at that time was that, you know, while all these games allow you to make money, but there wasn't a lot of really fun games in the market, right? So interestingly, that was 12 to 18 months ago. A lot of AAA game development teams have started since then to start building games. And you know, within now to the next 6 months is really when we can start harvesting the fruits of their labor, right? So we will be seeing a lot of really AAA quality, hopefully fun games in the blockchain Web3 space that's going to come online, you know, over the next 2 or 3 quarters, right? So I think that's certainly something that is very exciting, and that's why you know, it's very easy to see that gaming and metaverses. I mean, for that matter, for example, take an example like Sandbox, right? Sandbox has been in alpha for a long period of time, but it's also sort of near the tipping point where we're ready for a proper production launch of all the land parcels, where, you know, all the brands that are on Sandbox can show the best version of themselves in voxels, right? So that's very exciting. The second area, I think, just as a tech guy, from a technology perspective, one of the areas that I'm quite bullish on is also looking at L1 technologies that are, you know, purposely built to solve a lot of the issues we have today. You know, now we see new L1 chains, you know, like Say, who are built specifically for DeFi, you know, with, you know, on-chain order books. You know, there are other, you know, chains like Sui and Aptos and Radix, who are actually reinventing the programming, the smart contract language for you to develop smart contracts on, you know, in order to make it more error-proof, right? Because nowadays, there's a hack every other day, you know, in the DeFi space, all mostly because of these exploits that are easy to code. So I think those two are sort of the main things I will be looking at, you know, for the next bull run.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah, so to add to what Jonathan said, yeah, absolutely, right. So even like some of our studios, we actually already started experimenting, because Sandbox has some of the core studios experiment and play around with Game Maker version 0.8, and so that one is exactly what Jonathan is saying. It's so much more immersive. You could create really interesting effects. I remember when my chief metaverse officer started playing around some of these tools, and everyone's just like gobsmacked. They're like, "What? This is Sandbox!" And like all the fans are like, were really like, "Wow!" On Twitter, it was like lit. It was is super cute that people are really excited about Game Makers 0.8. So yeah, I can definitely expect more like realistic avatars, immersive experiences, etc. So not just on the gaming front, I think 2023, we're definitely going to see a lot more movement in the AR space, right? I mean, already Disney started releasing short, AR films, right? It's been super, super successful. In fact, I remember like talked about 12 to 18 months as that sort of cycle. We're talking to actually a film studio that was going that route as well, and now I think they're sort of coming, they're getting ready as well with their AR films and tied to like NFTs and the metaverse. So I think a lot of those projects are coming to fruition. Meta, right? Their Quest is going to be available later this year as well. So I definitely think, and Apple is slated to, even though they're very tight-lipped, right? I mean, they're slated to be releasing their own AR. So I think there is going to be a lot of excitement in the AR front. And personally, we will be releasing a statement soon, so you're the first to hear it here. We just received a $500,000 grant for SG Enable to create an accessibility park in the metaverse. So this also means we will be building out and trying to create a lot more accessibility features in the games that we're creating. But this also means we are also actively researching, partnering with studios and institutions that work with like creating like haptic bodysuits, right? 3D treadmills, and these sorts of technologies that are actually already available. It's just that now we're all trying to like piece them together so that we can onboard it into the metaverse, right? Like all these things like haptic suits, I mean, they're already available. So I think you're just going to see more collaborations at a faster speed. So I think these are all the kinds of things that I'll be looking out for in 2023. And they're not speculative. I mean, they're very like building, very collaborative, and you will see an end product. So it's super exciting what's going to happen in 2023.
Okay, got it. Yeah, thanks, Loretta, for that really exciting stuff. And I love it because you guys are really at the forefront of this, and you know what's happening, while most consumers are just worried that, oh, the price of Ethereum or Bitcoin dropping, and like, oh, I should stay away. But you guys are seeing the actual stuff that they are being built as we speak. So super cool. Yeah, we are entering the last few questions already. So for members of the audience who have your own questions, now's the right time to just throw them in before we get to the Q&A segment. But also speaking of the audience, I think some of us here are very much either starting their own Web3 company or a Web2 company, which is very interested to experiment and enter the space. Any advice to give these budding young entrepreneurs as they're starting out, what they should be looking out for, or what they should be focusing on, any words of wisdom that you can pass on to them?
I mean, I think just to reiterate a point that Loretta made earlier, now is the bear market, right? Nothing much is going on. So this is the best time to build stuff, right? Yeah, even if you have investors, no one's gonna, knock on your door and ask you what's going on with the price, because everyone knows that everything is going down. So, this is a quiet time. There's no speculation going on now. All the speculators left already. Even if you're building a Web2 or a Web3 company, this is really the time to build. Don't be afraid that crypto will go to zero or Bitcoin will go to zero, because I believe, and we probably reached this point maybe 3 or 4 years ago, that it's already too big to fail, right? There's no way, and I'm almost willing to bet my life on this. There's no way that the industry will go to zero at this point. Maybe 5, 6 years ago, maybe it wasn't a sure thing, but at this point, you even have central banks around the world talking about holding crypto on their balance sheet, right? So, have conviction, heads down, and just continue to build would be what I say.
Awesome.
Yeah, as an older person, it's true, right? I think the one thing we always say that it's so cliche, but the reason why cliches are cliches is because they are somewhat true, that there really is nothing to fear but fear itself. And I think all of you, I like to think that many of you are at that age where you can afford to take chances. And to Jonathan's point, I mean, the bear market is exactly the kind of moment that you really want to take advantage of this moment, which is more reflective, meditative, to really plan. And I think what's really important is to know your why, know your core, know why you're building in the first place, right? Because as with all things, speculation is very fun, but it's fundamentally gambling. And we all know these things happen in cycles. I mean, everyone that has been around knows that these things, you know, they're ups and downs, just like a roller coaster. It happens. But I think when you have something that has a core value that you value, even if you do quote unquote fail, that is part of entrepreneurship, right? You pick yourself up, you find a new product, find a new project. As long as you have the right perspective that is not failure, that is just like a lesson that I learned, right? Some people pay $250,000 to go to Harvard or Wharton to get an MBA. You paid it in your project. You just pick yourself up, dust yourself off, jump back in again. And I think it's about holding grit, holding resilience. I think these are the fundamental values that are really important. And I think the one thing that I will say is important though, is I would say start with something that you know, because or at least you enjoy, and that you so that even if you do fail, you won't think that it's a complete like waste of your time, because you enjoyed it, you enjoyed the process. I really think that founders who find their mojo, like people can tell, like wow, like you know, I don't know if this product will really work, but because fundamentally what the people do when they invest in a startup, they're investing in you, the person, your idea, your conviction, your values, your belief, right? Because they can go and buy a blue chip, and they can definitely invest in a way more stable company, but they're choosing to invest in founders because there's something about you that is special. So I think you should hone that, hang on to that, and like cut out all the noise and really like find your why, your core, and go for it.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, love those two answers. Really, really inspiring. And yep, so we'll move on to the Q&A now, understanding that although we started a bit late, we'll just drag on for about 5 minutes for those who are still here. So 2 questions from the Q&A. I think I'll just ask the first. Okay, so the first question is, are there any reference links that would give more information about the metaverse and Web3? I think Wei Liang will take that live later on, or if Loretta and Jonathan, if you have any links to good resources, feel free to send it in the chat. The other question we have is, how can we monetize in the metaverse? So yeah, anyone wants to take this, or yeah?
I mean, I can go first, I guess. I know Loretta probably has a lot more to say about this, but I'll just start with a brief answer. You know what? The metaverse is essentially an alternate reality, which means a lot of the things that we see in our current reality in terms of commerce, you know, will probably have an equivalent in the metaverse as well, right? Right now, for example, you look at metaverses like the Sandbox or others, you know, one way to monetize is through selling NFTs, right? In the future, that's not going to be the only way to monetize, right? There are other ways you can exchange goods and services within the metaverse. You know, some could be for NFTs, some could be for other means, or even if you're a metaverse owner, you know, gating access. Although I don't see a lot of people doing that now, but that's also one possible way to monetize. I mean, Loretta is really closer in the space than I am, so I'll let her speak on that.
Yeah, but I think it also, and I don't want to be too general, right? Anonymous attendee, but I think exactly to Jonathan's point, I think people think the metaverse is this like special world, but exactly what Jonathan says, it's just an extension of a real world. So the same strategies you will use to make business or to make money in the real world, you use it in the metaverse, right? So if I go back to fundamentals, it's like how you create a great product, how do you create a customer base, how do you engage your fans or your communities, right? So if you can get like your fundamental like 4 P's of like your price, product, you know, placement, promotions, etc., you fundamentally have a strategy, right? But then it's just like the medium is slightly different, right? So instead of maybe selling, you know, this t-shirt, you're now selling a digital version of this t-shirt. Instead of like weaving this, you know, pair of socks, you have this digital socks. So the medium is slightly different, but I think the fundamentals of business remains. The currency could be different, but the fundamentals remain. And I go back to this because I don't want like you folks to think that, oh, you have to suddenly specially learn some like special tool, because I think good old-fashioned sense, business sense, being a good person, doing business the right way, some of those values, finding good partners, establishing trust, making sure you keep your word. I think those fundamental business principles still remain. Just that these tools will evolve, but the skill sets that your parents or grandparents or mindsets they imbued in you, to be honest, I think that's how you monetize, not just in a metaverse, but really in any verse that you want to go to, in the universe, in a metaverse, in a mortal verse. I think those fundamental principles still remain.
Right, makes lots of sense. So just to summarize the session, firstly, thanks Loretta and Jonathan for all the insights shared. I think it was a very fruitful, very insightful discussion. But just to summarize, I think we've kept saying over and over again, now's the right time to focus on the product, make sure we build a great product, innovate on the product, and apply the same tools that we know about business from the beginning, right? Create a good product, monetize through upfront sales or get them to pay subscriptions and whatnot. But really, if the product is that good in the metaverse, then you can monetize later on. So yeah, I think that brings us to the end of the Fireside Chat. I would love to thank Jonathan and Loretta once more. They've taken their time off their busy schedules, and it's something that we all appreciate. So thanks so much, and thanks to the attendees for joining us today as well. Really hope this session has been great for you. Do consider applying for the SCAPE Creative Fellowship Program. I went through it, so it's definitely very useful. But with that, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.